Here are 10 do's and don'ts, all to do with water, with watercolour painting. Let's get started. My name is Paul Hopkinson and I'm a watercolour artist, and I specialise in fine detail in a realistic way painting wildlife in watercolour. I teach online on my website and of course here on YouTube. Don't wash your brush out and take it straight across that watercolour surface to kind of wet an area of your work. Now there's likely to be an excess water on that metal ferrule, and as soon as you approach your painting, it's very likely to drip. You may be lucky and have it drip on an unpainted area, but you may be not. Do lightly drag your brush sideways over some kitchen roll before you head towards your painting. Now this should remove any excess water from that ferrule. You can of course protect your paper by covering up areas on your artwork that you're not currently working on. And you can do this by just using small strips of, let's say, printer paper, and just place those around the outside of the painting. And another good way is to use tracing paper as well, because at least that way around you can see exactly where you're going to mark around that paper and just simply cut out that area that you want to work on. Don't work with a single pot of water and don't expect it to last the whole of the painting. You'll eventually find your lightest colours becoming tainted and nowhere near as bright and as vibrant as they should be. So this is an example for you. So I've just got one glass of dirty water here. I'm going to go straight into my yellow. I've just had some red on this brush, as you can tell. Look at the state of that. So this is now turning orange. So it's a quick test to show you the colour of this. It's more like a golden yellow, isn't it? So if I try this with a clean yellow from a clean brush, you can see the difference straight away. So clean on the left and obviously dirty on the right, which is that one there. There you go. Do change your water frequently, particularly when it starts to become a little bit too dark in colour. And do work with either 2 pots of water or a split water pot like I've got here. Use one section for the first wash of your brush. I call it the dirty side for my pot. And on the other, cleaner side for the final wash of your brush, and then for diluting the colours as well. And don't forget to give that brush a quick wipe in between washing as well, and that will also help keep it clean. So here is an example of 2 plastic water pots, one dirty and one very, very clean. So when you just do it in one pot, I'll show you what I mean. So we get some watercolour test paper a minute. Look at the colour in there, you can see all the dirty water in there, even though I've washed that brush out. Not very nice, is it? Not very nice indeed. So, what we'll do, we'll give another wash out again, but this time in some clean water, and we'll try it straight after that and see what that one's like. So this is washed once in the dirty and once in the clean, and look at the difference. Don't apply too much water to your paper because it can cause puddles and warping on that paper surface, particularly with that lower pound types as well. It can also run down like a waterfall on your paper if you work with your board on a slight angle, which I do all the time. And as you can see here, it just keeps wanting to run down that paper and cause big puddles at the bottom, doesn't it? And you can imagine what's going to happen to those puddles if I tip this any higher, and this is what happens. But it's very good actually for some different effects that you can do as well. But that's for another video tutorial. Do apply water in layers, allowing each layer to soak in. This way you get lots of moisture into the paper. So allow this water to soak in. As I say, just put the layer of water on to begin with. Allow it to soak in just a little bit, just for the sake of a minute or so. Then put another layer on and do the same, and then another layer and do the same. The wetter the paper, the longer working time you'll have on this background. Don't start adding paint to a wet surface until you're given it a chance to soak in that little bit. Dropping paint into puddles of water can result in a sort of floating paint spread. So it's a bit like oil over water. It'll also travel a very long way. But admittedly, it's also very handy for some very special effects. Do work with a damp surface to allow more control over the spread of the paint and allow the paint to adhere to the surface exactly where you want it to go. So just for comparison, the one on the left is where I left the water to soak in the paper that little bit longer, whereas the one on the right are where it's on a very, very wet surface. Don't try to apply unbroken lines with paint that is too dry. So for instance, it's very difficult to work with paint straight from the tube. It doesn't flow and the lines tend to break up and become quite blobby in places. Do add a little bit of water to your paint, and that will enable you to work with a very flowing line without that line breaking on the surface of the paper, unless of course you want a dry brush effect. Don't try to work with a water brush that's too dry. The paint won't blend and it won't flow on that damp paper. Ultimately, you'll be left with hard edges, cauliflower marks and also blemishes. Do work with watery or milky mixes for wash areas. They'll become diluted by the water on the paper and will spread and blend into the damp surface. This creates a much nicer effect compared to a wash with hard edges. Don't try to work with paint that is too watery or too watery for the whole painting. This will result in a pale, flat image. Do add more pigment to the water to thicken that paint. Also work with different consistency paints to build tone and colour variation. This will give your work depth and richness and vibrancy of colour. Don't just dip the brush into watery or milky paint and then immediately take the brush over to that watercolour surface. You're likely to end up with drips of paint where you don't want them. Do dip your brush into the paint to load it, roll it as you pull it away from the colour and then tap it onto some kitchen roll before you head to the painting. So load it, roll it and dab it. It's a really good way of remembering what to do. Don't try to work detail over paper that's still damp or wet. Your lines will simply blend and bleed in the surrounding areas. Do wait for the paper to dry fully before trying to paint that fine detail. You can leave work to dry naturally or you can speed up the process with the use of a hairdryer. Don't try to apply layers of colour to another wash that's dried a little bit too much. Just not got the shine on the paper. You'll end up with blemishes, marks and also cauliflower marks. Do wait for the area to fully dry and then re-wet and allow that water to soak into the paper before applying further washes or blended detail. Say hello in the comments below. I would love to know that you've enjoyed this video. And if you can't get enough of me, check out the videos to my right where I'll see you next.